Hello all. I'm just going to show you my Lego collection. I've built lots and lots of models over the years from Lego. I have done for many years. And a big kid, I'm 46, I know I still play with Lego. I spent a lot of money on Lego. Lego isn't that cheap. So I spent hours and hours and hours and hours over the days, years and months, just on my free time when I've had a chance. Obviously, be working in that, you know, and other things, I've just got to fit it in when I've got a chance. But I really am passionate about building model vehicles from Lego. I mean, I like vehicles. You probably know if you've seen my YouTube videos, you'll know that I'm into buses, trucks, cars, and bagger racing, stock car bagger racing, etc. Buses being my favourite of all, and a bus spotter. But I've got tons of other stuff on my YouTube channel as well, various other subjects, as you know if you've seen through my YouTube channel. But I won't go into too much because I've got quite a bit to do later on, so I'll just kind of get through this as quick as I can. I'll just rustle up what I could for you to show you what I've got as far as my Lego collections go, or some of it anyway. So I'll turn it around and I'll go through some of the models that I've built. Okay. So I'm just in my room. This is it's based off the Volvo B7 RV Type Bodywork. Now, I'm no expert with Lego. It isn't built from kit forum or anything like that. It's built from my own imagination. In other words, I've built it from scratch. I've designed it myself from scratch, and I haven't used any kit forum. What I've done is I've just got standard Lego bits from the pick and mix, pick a brick from it's just basically a mixture of Lego. You could just miscellaneous pick the parts. So I just build it myself. I don't follow the other or any pre-packed or pre-designed models. I just build them from scratch myself the way I want to, and this is just how I like to do it. So you might not really see very much at the moment, but I've got an interior. I've got the black is as close as I would get for the dark brown seats that Dundee Tayside buses had in their Volvo B7 Alexander RV type bodies. It's got the grille that comes off as well. I mean, I'd kind of like, that I want to be spending too long, but I'll whisk through the rest of them. I can maybe go into a wee bit of detail with this one. I end up breaking the note because I'm on camera. Yeah, typical. But it came off already. That's easy. I'll just put that on. It's just because I'm holding the camera and doing that at the same time. So that resembles the engine. The Volvo also had the engine at the front, and it had the transmission in the centre, and I've built all that in there as well. I've built what you would call, or what I call, a representative of it. In other words, I've just put something to resemble or to represent it. So what I'll do is I'll stand this upside down and I'll pause this a second and show you in a bit more detail. But before I do that, it's got a registration, lights. It's a scaled model as best as I can. In other words, Lego is fixed scale in its own right. Swing mirrors, seat, driver's seat, instrument, wipers, destination blind. It's not, I'm just going through this very quickly, so you're only going to get a rough idea. I've got the door representations. Now, it doesn't really necessarily work exact to the Elsa specifications because there's only so much you can do with Lego. The scale, it's basically as close as I could get. It's 1 centimetre to equal 1 foot. So that particular model that Dundee had, the Volvo B7 Alexander RV type bodywork, was 33.5 feet long. So I've measured this at as close as I could get, which is 33 centimetres, just under 33.5 centimetres, which isn't bad. And the width is about 8 foot, which is 10 dots, so that's 8 centimetres. The height, 14 foot 8, 14 foot 10, so that's 14.10 centimetres, as close as I could get. The weight, I've also synchronised the weight. Now I'll go through that, I'll explain that better in detail later, because you'd have to see the other models to get what I mean on that. But that's just the door representation. They just go in there to give you an idea of the doors. No, I haven't got glass or anything, it's just straight through. This comes off as well to reveal the rest of the engine. I'll go and turn this upside down and show you what I've used for the transmission and running gear representations of it. Right, so I'm being very careful how to do that, because with these models, because they're heavy and that, you don't lift it by the top because it'll just come apart. It's bulky and heavy. I know how to lift it about it, so I know exactly what I'm doing that. I don't normally do this, but because it's on camera, it'll probably go wrong, but let's just hope not. Anyway, axle, front axle representative, which is a Kirstall Ford front axle on the real Volvo Rles. And with the rear axle, drive axle, leaf springs. That particular model, the 36 to 50 fleet, the Tayside had were leaf springed. HSR 36X to HSR 50X, the registrations. They had the leaf spring suspension, like the Mark 1 Volvo Rles and Mark 2 Volvo Rles. They had the dark brown seats like the Mark 1 Volvo Rles, although the Mark 1 Volvo Rles Alexander AV type bodywork had dark blue seats, or blue seats, whereas the Alexander RV type bodywork had the dark brown seats in them. Engine here, prop shaft, maybe I'll make it out. Exhaust system, silencer system, representative, chassis legs, air tags. Obviously I don't have them for real, so I just used Lego representations for it. Radiator, engine sump, engine brackets, auxiliary components like alternators, etc. Just various bits that resemble it. I'm just hoping this stays in focus. Fuel tanks are at the back on the Rles, so I've got fuel tank representation, I've got battery representation, battery cabling representations because the Rles had that. Got some more auxiliary valves and stuff, air valves. Obviously the chassis is just built the way I've built it to represent the Volvo Rles chassis. The chassis is a chassis on this model on Lego, so I've built it with a chassis from Lego, obviously, and a separate bodywork that fits onto it. So that's just the underside of it. I'll put it up right now if you give us a second. So the 36 to 50 fleet is my favourite of all buses anywhere. I've got pictures on the wall in my room here, but I'm not going to show that because I never took them. But I've done videos about it anyway. There is I've got pictures of all the Alexander RV type bodywork in the background, but like I say, I never took them. So there is a book with Volvo Rles out, and it was done by Stuart J. Brown. I've got it, and it's got an Alexander RV type bodywork on it. I could say that, but I never, as I say, I'm not like copying anything and just showing you. I mean, if you know your buses, then you'll know the model. If you don't know the buses, you could easily Google it up, type in Dundee Tayside buses in the 1980s and 1990s, and it'll come up with a lot of pictures on Google, and look for the buses that were fleet numbered 36 to 50, and you'll see photos of what they look like. I've done videos about the Volvo Rles on my YouTube channel, and there's pictures that I've taken that show that model. So basically, that's that. Now I've got loads of models. The interior, it's got the staircase representations, it's got the driver cab, driver pod representation. It took me hours to build this, by the way. It's got the bulkhead for the stairs representations. It's got lights in it as well. Upper deck lights, window representation, the hoppers for the windows, the seats. But being Lego, there's only so much you can do. The thicknesses of the Lego can't be obviously scaled to the real thickness of the pillars on the real model, because Lego comes in a set size. So I've had to just make do with what there is to get it as close as I can. That's the air vent pod on the roof. Obviously the windows is as close as I could get, resemble something similar to the 36 to 50 design. So I'm going to get a model that I've built with it that resembles the Alexander AV type bodywork. So this resembles the Tayside Alexander RV type bodywork because it's got the extra bit here. Tayside was the only one that had the RV type bodyworks on the Volvo Rles chassis that were this extra long. The rest were standard length, about 32 feet. Tayside had the only longest ones with the Alexander RV type bodyworks with the dark brown seats, and they were the only ones that had the leaf spring suspensions. And this extra bay accounted for the extra length. Whereas the standard ones, like the standard ones were just 32 feet, which would have been about like that kind of. Well, the overhang wouldn't be that short. It'd be about It didn't have this extra bit anyway. So I'm going to move on to the AV type body representation that I built and designed from scratch myself, the way I built it, the way I like it. And that's just what I've done. This was built years ago. I've started building Lego since I was a kid, in fact, the 80s, right? So, but I sort of like got dedicated to it. There's a space in the house, in the alcove, that I've dedicated for Lego building, and I've done that since 2009. Well, actually, the alcove was 2011, but I bought heaps of Lego from stalls, basically, so I kind of like started to scale up. I started on a smaller scale, and then moved to the bigger scale, which was the centimetre to represent an inch. And I've got bigger wheels. But anyway, I'm going to move on, so I'll show you that next, okay? Right, this is the AV type bodywork design that the way I've done it anyway, okay? So it looks, this is the way I've done it. This is the best I could do with the dome at the back. The window layout, that's the best I could do. It's 32 feet long, so therefore 32 centimetres long. Door representative, Tayside HUD. It's based on Taysides. I had blue seats, so I've got Lego that was blue. It's obviously a little lighter, but that's as close as I could get. Whereas on the RV type one up there, that had the black to resemble dark brown. Same sort of idea. Different wheels because that's all the Lego that I had. Same story. Bulkhead for the engine pod is there. Representative staircase of spiral, similar to the way it was on the buses. Single seats. These are representing the seats. Okay, they might not look like seats, but they're representing the seats anyway. So it's the best I can do with Lego. It's good enough for me. I'm just showing you what I've done and just sharing it with you. So that's the front. That's the best I could do with the windows, because obviously with Lego you can't curve it. It comes in the way it is. So I've got the front dome. It's as good as I've got. Destination blind, good enough for me. I mean, I'll do. I mean, I don't sell them or anything. It's just for my pleasure. I just look at them. I like building them, add bits to them, and you probably know I like stock car racing, stock car banger racing, where they get real cars, and I've seen it with buses. They get them, smash them up. So if I'm building another model, instead of just taking it apart the boring way, I've got a circuit. You know, like I set this up in my room. It's a wooden, it's a big table basically, like resembling the stock car circuit, and I take the models on and just smash them around. They resemble the stock car racing. Yeah, I know, I'm a big kid. I like playing Lego, fair enough. I got to unwind after a long day. I like it. Everybody's got their own thing, haven't they? So I like Lego. I like lots of things, but Lego's one of them. Driver cab. That's the air take for because there's a black vent there, which was for the heater, and the Mark II's had the vent there for the air filter for the engine. The Mark I's had an air filter under here, and that vent was only for the heater, I think. And then here's your expansion tank for your coolant. So number plate representative, lights, the back dome, the underside. I'll pause this a minute, I'll show you that. So I'll put an underside representation of the components, the running gear, engine at the front, transmission centre mounted, prop shaft, second prop shaft at the rear, hammer the rear axle drop centre. Obviously it's the best I could do with Lego. Radiator representation and all the auxiliaries. Same story as the other one. And the front, it's got the indicators, lights, etc. Number plate to represent the number plate. That's to represent the vents, the air ventilation system. So, right, same thing. It's got the interior as well, light representations, seat brackets, bulkhead. As much as I could really do with Lego, I've crammed it into this scale. And as I say, I'll go through the weight synchronization with you. I'll explain what I mean by that later on. Right, so that's the Alexander AV type bodywork based on a Mark I, Mark II Volvo also chassis. As close as you're going to get to it, because obviously in the real buses have fine detail between the two models. Like the Mark I had a lower windscreen, etc. But you know, as I say, there's only so much. I mean, I'm sure I could do more with Lego, but this is what I've done anyway at the moment, and I'm quite happy with it. I just use standard blocks. I know there's a lot of other things, a lot of money in that involved in it, but I've not got a lot of money, so I'll just have to buy it in what I could buy and just use what I've got. And right, so I'll move on to some of the other models that I've bought as well from Lego. Right, this is based on the Tayside Volvo B7 City Bus, the 1989 ones with the Alexander RV Type Bodywork. And they were on the Douglas route when they first came. 26, 28, 29 Douglas route. 26 went to Douglas, 28 went to Charleston, top half, 29 went to Charleston, bottom half. And 26 was to Douglas. Now it's still different. Today it's just the 28, there's both ways. But anyway, Volvo B7 City Bus, same scenario, scaled centimetre for equaling an inch. Again, got the seats. Obviously, the other one had the bar in real life. There's a handrail that went along there, but there's no glass on these models. I've just represented the windows with just having nothing, just basically as you could see it. You could, the spaces represent the windows, and the hoppers are just represented with these in the same pattern as the real buses. Now the bonnet for the engine, it was a mid-engine B10M, that stands for bus, 10 litre engine, mid-mult, and it's a city bus because it was based off the coach model. The B10M coach is the model, but the city bus is a spin-off of the coach, if you like. It's a city bus version. So it's like, although the Tayside one had high profile tyres, some of the other Volvo B10M city buses had low profile tyres. The coaches had high profile tyres for high speed motorway driving. The Tayside ones had high profile tyres for motorway driving for contract work, although it was still a city bus. It was a double decker and it was quite high, exceptionally high. It was a couple of inches higher than the Else's, and there were problems. I encountered a few problems. They encountered a few problems with the extra height regarding objects, low bridges, because they were a little bit higher, because the engine's underneath as well. Again, represented by a lot of multitude of components. Engine at the middle, transmission was connected to the engine, and there was a short prop shaft going to the rear axle. It was Volvo straight axle. Double tanks at the back. Cooling fan was right at the front, which is represented in there. Radiator as well. So the exhaust system is also representative stuff in there for that. Air tanks, suspension, they had airbag suspensions. There's represented components like round Lego cylinders that I used to represent the airbags. There was 4 airbags on the rear axle and 2 on the front. So that's that. I'm just sort of screaming through this as quickly as I can because I've got to go later on. I've got stuff to do, so I'm just trying to get as much done as I could for you. Number plate was up on there. Looked very similar to the 36 to 50 fleet, though they came with the orange moquette seats, so I've used red Lego to represent that. Again, door representative just comes off, and the driver cab was sealed in the Tayside ones, so the driver had a separate cab door like the Else's to get in and out. Whereas a lot of the city buses of that type, like Glasgow, I think had an entrance here for the driver. I'm not sure, I have to think back on that, I'll have to check on that later, but I know that some of them did. The Tayside's also had a split top front window, so I've used that to represent that on this model. Okay, I'll move on to another model now. So as I say, I'm into lots of vehicles, interested in them all. Big trucks, I like trucks. Buses are my favourite, I like big trucks as well. And cars, etc. So I bought a big truck. It's an articulated tipper triaxle, which would be a gross weight of 44 tonne because it's got the 3 axles on the trailer, which is 6 tonne an axle roughly. 6.5 tonne axle, so that's 18, 19 and a half, just under 20 tonne on the rear bit. Then you've got the unit, which is a triaxle. Again, it's drive axle is a double one, so that's 13 tonne, 12 tonne limit. Then your front's about 6.5. The rear, it's just a single wheel in this, so it's 6.5, 13 plus 12, it's just under 26 tonne. So you got trailer could weigh in it. Let's say that'd be what, 18 tonne or something on the rear, 18 tonne on the front. So that's 18 tonne. That's 12 for your drive axle. That's your heavy duty one, double wheels. Although I don't have it on my Lego, but the trucks do. And the single one, it could either be their tandem axle or it could be inboard, vice versa. But on this, it doesn't matter. We'll just say that's the drive one. No, say that's the drive one, that's the tandem. So 12 tonne, 6 tonne, and front axle 6, or 6.5, just under 7, thereabouts. So that's 12 plus 6, that's 18. So that's a trailer weight of 36 tonne, including the trailer itself and the load. And the unit will be about 8 tonne. So that's 8 tonne for the truck unit, and 36 tonne for the trailer, fully loaded, that is. So that gives you a gross vehicle weight of 44 tonne. So that's based off of, this model I've built is based on the 44 tonne articulated tipper truck. And it does articulate as well. I used, it's got the landing gear as well. It's got a pin there that does go into the 5th turntable. And see, I can't really show that too well on the camera as well at the same time, but it goes in there anyway. It does tip as well. It comes out. In fact, I'll pause it, I'll show you. The cab tilts also to reveal the engine, and all that's buried in there. It's got a cab as well, all the components and stuff that I've represented, like dashboards and seats, and air conditioning and all that. I'll go and show you that. I'll show you this thing set up in the tipping mode, what it's capable of doing. So give us a second. So I'll just quickly got this set up, just very briefly for you. That's how it sort of works. It swivels on the 5th wheel. That's just auxiliary Suzy lines. I've used this here. That sat up there, that doubled up as a horn. It also doubles up as the, to keep the cab from falling down, because it's to represent the cab tilting to access the engine, which is there. Engine representative, turbo representative, transmission, well, 5th wheel, coupling, clutch, whatever, between the engine and transmission. And then transmission is actually representatives in here. I've covered it up, but I've covered it up for other reasons as well, as I'll explain later. So yeah, it does turn, etc. That's the spare wheel. This opens up to reveal the tipping gear. In fact, I'll get up and show you. It's quite complex, quite fragile if you're not careful with it. So it's based on, I think if I remember right, I've got records of it anyway to record what I've, because I bought them over the years. I think I've got an engine represented as a 12 litre engine, and I use cylinders as the literage. There's a particular Lego that looks, it's got a cylinder. In fact, these cylinders, the Lego cylinders, which is the round dots, I use them to represent a multitude of things. Like in this case, it's representing the air sac suspension, and the engine, it's representing the cylinders, the number of litres rather. It's 12 litres, so there's 12 of these in there. Although it is a 6-cylinder straight engine, I've used the rocker covers, which is these angular ones, to try and represent the engine 6-cylinder inline. The landing gear as well, I'll just quickly show you that if you want. Right, I've got the landing gear set up, so the cab is detached from the trailer. So it's the tractor unit. Again, the weight's synchronised as well, also. As I'll say, I'll explain that later in the video, what I mean by synchronised weight. So that's the tractor unit. Sleeper cab, tri-axle, 12 litre. No, it's not based off any particular model, it just represents a tractor unit. That's the thing, I don't use badges, or I don't, as you can see, I don't have a particular livery either, because I've just used any Lego that came to me at the time when I was building it. What I'm interested in is to get something that resembles a truck, and it does. To get the components in, like the lights, the engine representatives, like driver seats, air seats. I've just put things in there to represent it as best I could. Like that's your triple wipers, 1, 2, 3. You've got over Kelso bars for your upper and lower lights, and wipers for the lights, etc. Double lights. I could talk about them for ages, but I just don't have the time. I'm just going to have to be really quick here. So I'll move on to another model, and then I'll just go through kind of some of the rest very quickly. Okay. I'll just quickly show you them as well. This is the box van Transit Jumbo. Again, this opens up. Representative stuff in there, dashboard, running gear, bonnet comes off to reveal a wee engine in there. Car, it's based off a 6 foot wide car, so I can't get the exact figures because the Lego's limited. So, again, got engine, etc. Yeah. Now I've also got like production line models. In other words, I've got 3 identical built. When I say identical, I mean built exactly the same. Every single bit of Lego is identical to each other. That's what I mean by production model. That isn't. That was just built and that's it, solo. I've got loads of vans that are just built as they are, but then I've got models that I've built that are production models, as I call them, because they're identical in every way. I mean, not in the colour. Not in the colour in this is irrelevant unless it's for seat colours, like on the buses, but not necessarily for the cars or anything like that. But every bit of Lego is identical and positioned identically. It's the same part of the Lego and it's in the same, it's built identical. And I've got a few of them as well, and with the buses. So that's them. I'll show you something else. Right, this is a fixed chassis 8-wheeler tipper, 32 ton gross. When I say 32 ton gross, that's double drive axles, double wheeled, means just 2 wheels. So it's 12 ton, and two steering axles, 6.5 ton, 7 ton each. So that's that roughly then. We'll say 12, 24 plus 36 ton. Well, that maybe design wise it's allowed that way, but legally on the UK roads, the 8-wheeler, depending on the spacing of the axles and that, but the 8-wheelers are generally, when I say 8-wheeler, well, 8 wheels it is, but technically it's actually 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 wheels, because you've got double wheels on each side for the rear axles. There's 2, 4, 6, 8 on the rear, and you've got 10, one on that axle, one on the other side of the axle, one on the steering, and one on the other. So technically it's 2, 3, 4, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So technically it's 12 wheels, but it's regarded as a 8-wheeler because it's got 4 axles and there's a wheel at each side of the axle. But they don't normally count the double as an extra wheel. So an 8-wheeler in the UK grosses in at 32 ton. But this is again like the other tipper, the Arctic cab tilts. This comes up as well, and I've got the stays at the back there to keep it tipped, and that opens out as well. That reveals the transmission, etc., and all the auxiliary components. Now these tippers have got big heavy duty leaf springs on the rear. In fact, they've got heavy duty leaf springs all around, I think, because they're on construction sites. So they're very heavy duty, very rigid, solid, robust looking things. Because of the work that I've got to do. Big ground clearance, and the axles are usually 8x4, and ours is like the drive axle, a drive axle, and then they've got your 2 trailing axles. So it's like 8 wheels that are driving, or both these axles are driven axles, because it's on construction sites, and it's got big ground clearance. Again, it's got the usual seats, white bars, etc., etc. So that's the 8-wheeler. Okay, I'll show you another. Right, this is the other one, another one. Another one for the money that I've got. It's a box truck, articulated box truck. Same as the tipper, the Arctic tipper. It's 6 axles, 44 ton gross. Same scenario, cab tilts, reveal the engine, etc., radiator, alternator, all the running gear. And again, you've got transmission. There is actually things in there, and they are connected up as well to the wheels. Oh, there's no power to it, but they're just connected up. So I like to sort of take them apart sometimes, and if I was wanting to say, right, I'm going to swap the engine out and that, I'll take it, work on it. I'll take time to actually do that, because things are built properly, like built as if it were, connected up as if it were real. There is bits in there that are connected. There is engine brackets, there's transmission brackets, all built in there. I spent hours building it that way. And again, that represents the wipers, lights. This here represents the cabs. That's a double. Doubles up as a bit of an aerial or something that could come off or keep the cab from. So when I put the cab up, I move that and put it under there, and that keeps it from falling back down. Spare wheel at the back. This opens up. It's quite difficult to handle the Arctics because they're in parts. You see the cab, the trailer and that comes apart, so I couldn't lift it up in the winter like I do on the rigid models. It opens to reveal the interior, but you can, as I was saying before, the thicknesses of the things aren't to scale because there's Lego. I can't make that thinner like it would be in real life. In the real life it'd be really thin, you know, canvas if it was scaled like a model, like in the models that I've got in there. You know. But as you say, with Lego, you can't do that because Lego comes in a set size. So I've just had to. It's still the overall width is still 8 feet. Like the Pacific models will be like an inch or two difference variant between the models because it's built obviously to exact specification. But with Lego, I just round it off to 8 feet. Yeah, it's got all the bumpers and stuff there. Right, so that's the. I'll show you the landing gear on as well. When I say landing gear, that's what the landing gear is. It stops the trailer from falling over. So that's the landing gear, that's the tractor unit. And that there again, that turns. And I've used this as a pin. I'm not going to take it out because I'm not going to start mucking the bolt yet just now. And just show you briefly. And under there is a hole for the turning on the fifth wheel. Again, under the trailer is representative for airbags for the lines, etc. for the brakes on the trailer. And it's similar, something similar set up on the tractor unit. I'll go through the synchronization and the weight very shortly. So I'm just parking this up, as it were. There's just a few, this is just a few models as to what I've got. I've got a lot more than that downstairs. Some single deckers, I'll show you that in detail in a minute. So I'm just going to get this one tucked away there and I'll show you something else. Right, so obviously this is a single decker. 40 foot long, or actually no, it's just over, maybe about 40 and a half. I've measured it so that these are slightly, just a little bit longer. The other single deckers are about 39 and a half feet. But anyway, this has got the door representative here. It goes in like that on this model. Cab door moves as well, and it's got the seats, it's got standing room. These marks in there are for the representing standing space. Now, the patterns on the model, the patterns on the Lego don't mean anything to me. They're just, I don't care about what's written or the colour of the Lego, and this is for seats. I don't, or for the number plate or for lights as well. I've used whatever Lego was available. I might have a pattern on it or whatnot, but it's completely irrelevant to the model. So like you can see there is a pattern on that floor mat representative. I just ignore that. That's only because I need to have the actual physical Lego to fit. So I just use what there is. I've got to obviously have clear Lego for the destination rear lights. Again, this bonnet comes off to reveal the engine representative. The engine's at the back on these. I've got engine covers as well to cover up components. The big bit in the centre there, I call that the belly, because what it does in my models is I've got it filled with coins, and I'll tell you why in a minute. It's to synchronise the weight. But on the actual real buses, it's just for a low floor model. It's a low floor single decker. So that would be floor space. It would actually just be the chassis rails, because when they build them, the bodybuilders get the two subframes. They get the rear half subframe and the front half subframe from Volvo, for example. Dundee have Volvo B7 Rles. So they've got the rear subframe half, which is the engine, transmission, axle, that bit of the chassis, and they've got the front half of the chassis, which is the drive axle, the steering axle, and the front bit for the front overhang. The bit between that, the wheelbase, is built by the bus bodybuilders, in which case for the Dundee version, Explore Dundee, they have Robert Wright Bodywork, Wright Gemini Eclipse or something. Right Eclipse. Right now I can't go into it, I'm too busy. I'm going to have to think about that later, but it's a Wright Bodywork anyway. I've got all the details, but anyway, so that's what they do. The bodybuilders set the length, the overall length of the vehicle, by determining the length of the wheelbase. So under there isn't really any mechanical linkages. There's only like air tanks, pipes, hoses, stuff like that. There isn't any drive shafts or anything like that, levers that connect from the front to the rear. It's hydraulic. Power steering, hydraulic cables, hydraulic fluid lines, air brakes, pneumatic hoses. And that comes in a coil form, obviously, so they could get the length, the overall length set. And that's supplied by Volvo. And all the leads go. And the bodybuilders determine the overall length. So that's air conditioning pods on the top there. It's got lights as well, vandal screen, wipers and big mirrors, and wing mirrors, etc. Or side mirrors. Right, so move on. Right, I'll explain a bit about the weight synchronization, what I mean by that. So I'll turn the camera around and I'll try and rustle through it as quickly as I can, show you what I mean, to explain what I mean. Now, what I mean by weight synchronization is the first model, well, the scale that I had before, forget about that just now. On this scale, 1 centimetre equals a foot, right? So 32.5 feet, 33 feet, 8 feet, or just over 33, and 14 feet high. Right, that's the scale. So when I scale it towards this car, right, this is based on a luxury car, a big car, because it's quite a wide car. 6 foot is quite wide for a car. So it's 6 centimetres. Right. So the weight is also synchronised as well. This was the first one I bought when I used this scale. Well, actually, I tell a lie, I had a generation before that. Over the years, this is the second generation of the Volvo Elsa. That doesn't mean much to you, but what it means is that I bought it first. The first one of the Elsa was built first, and I weighed it in grams. So it's just identical weight to the first one, basically. So kitchen scales, digital. Get the bus, put it on. Comes up 1143 grams. Right. Now the actual bus that's based off of, the Tayside one, which is the Alexander RV type body, was 9,762 kilograms. That was the real life weight. So what I've done here is I've used a typical car weight, right, which is about a metric ton, 1,000 kilograms. So in this instance, I got a model of a car. And basically the real bus in real life, right, could weigh up to 10 times the weight of a car, an average sized car at that time. That is in the 70s, 80s. Right, the cars are heavier nowadays. So if the bus weighs 10 times that weight, so when I build a car, the car will weigh a tenth of the weight of that. So the actual denominator factor is, or the factor I've used for the actual weight factor is 114.3 grams would equal 976.2 kilograms. Or to make it simpler, right, 10 metric tons. The bus in real life would be just under 10 metric tons, because 9,762 kilograms is just short of 10 metric tons, which is 10,000 kilograms. So, in this instance, the actual 10 ton, for this to be 10 metric tons, I have models that weigh that, equivalent. That would then weigh, it would be 1170 grams. Right? That's what that would show up in there. This is 1143, which is 976 kilograms. So 1170 would be the equivalent of 10,000 kilograms. So for a 1,000 kilogram car, right, which would be a tenth of the weight of the bus, it would weigh 117 grams. Now this is a big luxury car, so it weighs more than 117 grams. It weighs 189 grams, which is well over a metric ton. So if it was to weigh, which I've got downstairs, 117, that would be the equivalent of 1 metric ton, which is 1,000 kilograms. So this one here, if you do the arithmetic, you would divide that by 117. Now I've not got my calculator. I use a calculator when I do this. So give us a second, I'll go and tell you. I've got it written down anyway on the list. In fact, I'm just going to save time, I'm not going to bother. But to get the exact weight of that, you would just divide 189 by 117. That shot will come up with 1 point so much. That 1 point so much will be 1 point so much more than a metric ton that car would weigh. If that makes any sense to you. Probably not. But just to tell you, what you need to know, what the point I'm trying to make is 177 grams would be the equivalent of 1 metric ton, which is 1,000 kilograms in my case in this synchronization. So this big jumbo van here, the real life jumbo vans, transit vans, empty. Remember, this is empty loaded weights I work on. So the bus would be 10 tons empty, just under 10 metric ton empty. So this here, this jumbo transit van equivalent would be just over 2 tons. So that's 307 grams. So you divide that by 117 and you'll get the metric tons that's the equivalent of. You guys are sitting, I'll go with a calculator, I'll try and go through it a bit better. Right, I've got a calculator. So 307 grams, right? So I divide 307 by 117, that's the factor. 117 grams equals 1 metric ton. So that van synchronized weight is 2.62 metric tons, or if you times that by 1,000, 2,623 kilograms is the synchronized weight for this van. So that is the actual equivalent weights to each other on the road. So that bus is so many times heavier than that van. The actual scale is the same. So the real bus is so many times heavier than that van by an X number. So it's the same instance with this Lego. That bus will be that same X number of times heavier than that van. And this is a small family car that I built. It's a one-off solo, it's not a production model. And the weight of that is 108 grams. So it's just under a metric ton. So you get to get the exact kilograms, well, that's scaled, the synchronized weight is that. You get 108 divided by 117, and that comes in at 0.92 of a metric ton. So if you want to get a metric ton is 1,000 kilograms in a metric ton. So you would times 0.92 by 1,000. That's 923 kilograms, which is about the weight of I think I based it something along the lines of the weight of a Fiesta or something. I've built this over the years. I've got what you call a fleet list that tells me when I bought it, the scale weight, the generation. When I say generation, I mean that's the second generation. The first generation of this model was the same scale, the same weight, but it was an earlier model. It was built to look the same, but I wanted to build it better. So I built another one with better features to represent it better. And the other one had a different, the hoppers were a wee bit bigger. On this I had, because through time I bought more Lego, you see. So I was able to build it better each time. So it's a generation 2 of the Volvo. So I've got that on a list. I call that a fleet list. Again, it's just got an engine and all the representative stuff. It's a basic family car. Today's cars, modern cars, are much heavier than that. So I hope I've explained the scale for you a bit better. Now, what I used for ballast, when I was talking about the belly, that's just the word I used, on that single decker, the wheelbase, I filled it up with coins. Right? I taped the coins together and filled it up with coins. 2 pence pieces, 5 pence pieces are better because you use up less space. So there's a few coins, there's not a lot of money in there, by the way. It's only like about a couple of quid's worth. I put so many coins in there to get the weight synchronized and balanced. So I call it ballast. I really should have called that the ballast. I actually refer to that as the ballast tank, like on a ship, because it's for weight, the ballast. But I called it the belly because it's the way, when I lift it, I've got to hold it that way, which is like the centre, but the centre area when you're holding it up, like, anyway, never mind. Ballast. I use coins for ballast. And on the cabs of the truck, where the driver would sleep, and this is a sleeper cab, that there you wouldn't see anyway. So I filled that with coins, and there's a bulkhead in there to represent what they might call a partition inside the cab. So I've used that space to put coins in it. In here, there'll be fuel tanks, exhaust systems in real life. Like the models in there have all that. Oops, the models have all that, right? Because that's made of plastic. But they aren't weight synchronized. These are weight synchronized. So that truck would weigh about 15,000 kilograms. Which would mean then that bus there, that single decker that I've built, is about 10 metric tons. So in real life, that truck will weigh 1.5 times heavier than this full size single decker. That will be about 10 metric tons. That will be 50 metric tons. So on the scale, it's the same equivalent. That is 1.5 times the weight of that. And similarly, that bus is 10 times heavier than your cars, because the scale weight is the same. So I hope that makes a bit more sense. And the common denominator in them is 117. 117 grams on here is your common denominator. That's your equivalent to 1,000 kilograms, which is 1 metric ton. So basically, I've built all the models with that, and I've had to design around it to make allowances for the coins. This model doesn't have any coins. Well, actually, the first model generation set the bench. That set the weight at 117. This generation 2, because there's obviously slight differences in it, I've tried to use as little coins as I can. There isn't many in there. There's a couple, 2 or 3, just to get the fine balance right. That needs to weigh 1144 grams. To weigh exactly the same as the generation 1 before it. The generation 1 before didn't have any coins because that set the weight. So I built the model the way I wanted it, then I weighed it, and that was equivalent. That's going to set the weight for 9,762 kilograms. So instead of using 11.4, instead of using let's divide that by 1,000. 117 grams was easier because it rounded up to the metric ton. So if it was 1170, that would be 10 metric tons bang on. Now, the city bus was 10 metric tons bang on, so I won't demonstrate that to you. Yeah, that's as close as I'm going to get. It's 1169, because the Dundee Tayside Volvo B7 city buses with the Alexander RV type body, G91 PES to G105 PES, fleet numbered 91 to 105. These were 10,000 kilograms, the real life weight, which was 10 metric tons. So this one here is 1169 grams. So divide that by your 10, and the denominator is pretty close. It's a 116.9. So that's as close to 117 as I'm going to get. So that's 10 metric tons. That's how much more that weighs than the other one, which was 9,762 kilograms. Anyway, I've kind of gone on a bit enough. I hope you understand what I mean. So basically, 117 grams, you weigh any MM models, right, on here, divide it by 117, and you'll get the actual equivalent weight, because they're all synchronized. And I use coins to synchronize it. And in this particular model, I've used the split between the inner floor, the lower deck roof, and the top deck floor. There's incorporated a gap in there without affecting the overall look of the design and the structure of it as well. I've incorporated space so I can fit coins in there to get the weight just tuned exactly. Because Lego, by the way, won't do that. You see, Lego isn't built the way real life vehicles are built. I mean, in real life, the buses, trucks, the heaviest components is the chassis components, like your engine, your axle. You know, that I can't get the weight, the equivalent to that on there, because Lego doesn't have the equalities. Lego is all equal. The weights, excuse us, people outside making that, so I hope that doesn't come through. Lego, I can't get that with Lego. I mean, I can't get the density with Lego to get the weight. So I've got to use coins. The metal and the coins give the tuning of the weight. Right, I kind of went on about that a bit much, so I'm going to just very quickly show you some of the other models downstairs, and I'm going to have to round off this video. I've got to really talk fast and rattle through this as quick as I can, because I've got to get the tea, I've got to be somewhere later on, and I've got work at the minute, I've got the time off, and just got so much to do. I've always wanted to get around to doing this, so I'm just trying to rattle through this as quickly as I can for you. Like, you might see other pictures. This is in the alcove. This is where I do all my Lego building. As you know, I'm a big stock car fan as well. Banger racing. I had a shot of doing it. That was me up there. I actually won it. I had my shots. I mean, I didn't do it like all the time, but many years ago I had the shots of doing it. And first time I done it, well, yeah, done it a few times. I think it was the third time in London, I think I won it. I didn't do as well in Ipswich because I had a really bad crash. But it was all part of the fun, like, but I was a bit of a sore one. But I was up there. I got the medal somewhere. I tied it away somewhere, but I've not got my name on it yet. But that's me up there. That was 2010. That was 2011. The other shots I had was 2006, 2007. Anyway, besides all that, well, seen and on that subject, what I do when I finish with the models, instead of just taking them apart, you know, the boring way, I've got a arena up the stair, as I call it. It's basically a big table, and it's got sides on it and lights for lights. And that resembles the stock car circuit. So I take them around to play with the music, smash my bits, film it as well. And I just see what one's stronger, what one fares better, like buses and crashing at the trucks and buses, you know, crashing at each other. The trucks have the weak point, but the cab, the hinges on the cab is a weak point. The buses have the weak point is the pillars. Because they're just thin, they just come apart. I've got real life footage of buses doing bus banger racing and that as well. Earlier on in the video, but and coming off the point, I've got to try and focus in there otherwise this video will last too long and I'll be late for later on. What was it on about? Production models, weight balance. The coins I use, well, you know what the coins are, British currency, just coins. I've got loads of them. 5 pences. I fit them in a neat, that's 20 pence, but I use whatever there is. I try and use the 5s because they're better, because they're smaller, they take up less space, they're denser, and they get the weight. It's finer for tuning as well, because it's like you tune it, you want to take a wee bit of weight off, you take the 5 pence off. Just a wee bit on, you put 5 pence on. If you want a lot of weight, put the big ones in, take the weight right up, and then you fine tune it with the small ones. But I've got to build all that and incorporate it in the design so it doesn't ruin the look of the design. Production models, it's like I've got this here is like 1 of 10, so every single bit of it is identical to one another. They're all down in that lower cell. I've got 1, 2 and 3, 4 cells, 5 and 6. I've got all that there, which is really like Lego and some of the documents that I call to, you know, design features and designations. It tells you the weights of a particular model and or the grammage and stuff. I just scribble it down. The size of the engine, the litres, the cylinders that represent a litre, etc. I've got to. I won't remember all that. I've got to write it down. So when I look at one model like this one here, I've got a full document on that. Not a document for Facebook or YouTube. I didn't do Facebook or YouTube at all. Only started doing this from March 2020. But before that, I never dreamed we'd do anything like this. So I didn't get videos for online. Any footage I showed before wasn't for intention going online. But when I've been documenting the models, I've got like pictures that I've taken, and I've written a lot of stuff down, and I've shown all the different assembly, because I build it in an assembled stage. I don't just build it like up front. I do it like the chassis section, the body section, the seat section, the engine, the transmission section. I lay it all out, and I do what you call a final assembly. I'll turn it around and I'll show you a wee bit about what I've got here. Okay. That's a better view of the photos, by the way. So I was going back, that's the bangers, but that's 2010. Although that date's wrong. The year's right, but the time's wrong. It wasn't a one. It was late on at night, but it wasn't that. The clock was wrong. That's got my name on it. But I'm coming out of the subject and sort of like veering away a bit off the subject here, and I should be focusing on anything. This is just what they were doing truck racing down at Edensford Hill Raceway, where they get all bang of trucks and crash them into each other as well, of a destruction derby. Right, so that's like a box truck. Single decker, there's a twin of that, which I call production. There's a full-size megabus coach based off the Van Hool TD927 Van Hool. There's represents a big coach triaxle anyway, double decker, 80-seater, which weighs 18 tonne empty. So as you know by the weight scale, what that would be, you get 117 grams, times it by 18.5 actually, because it was 18.5 tonne, and you'll get the actual weight of that. I'll put it on the scales and you get. So that's about twice the weight of, not far off twice the weight of a Volvo Elsa bus. So therefore that model is not far off twice the weight of my Lego Volvo Elsa. I've got a full, that's a full length coach here as well, 65. Not for, sorry, 49 foot long coach. This one here is a triaxle. This is based off the Wright Gemini Volvo B7 TL. 7 litre engine at the back, transverse, single decker. Got a whole load of cars down here, production models. That's the sister of the bus. That's a midi bus. So I've got sort of smaller wheels. When I mean midi bus, it means it weighs a bit less. Smaller wheels. Carrying capacity is a wee bit less as well. I can't remember all the weights off the top of my head. I've got them written down. That's the production cars. There's a whole lot of different models in there, but I think there's 10 identical to that type, and there's 5 identical to that. The prototype one is the one that I use colours. The colours become relevant in certain instances, like the seat colours for the buses, and in this instance, in using an all green roof and bonnet to indicate that's a prototype. So I bought that one first, and then the rest replicated that. The other 4 or 5 or whatever, 9 replicated the prototype. I used green for that model. There's a black one. I bought this van here as a production model. That's the prototype. It's got the black and the black. I use that specifically because I wouldn't randomly get a Lego like that. I've actually went on my way to get the colour coded, so I know that that was the first one that I built. And the sister of that is that. So that's the copies of it. And I mean a copy in every way, weight as well. Every single bit of Lego, even getting to the engine. If I lift that off, there's bits that represent the inside of the engine, the cylinders as well. There's the radiator, the transmission. It's all built in there. Some that's hidden under the covers. Interior as well. So that's production models. The production car is a big car here as well. This is a one-off solo. When I say one-off solo, it means it's not a production one. It's just a one-off. I built it and that was it. Like that's the prototype of a production model. So that's the prototype. That's the copies. There's about another 4 copies. This one here, like as I say, I had Lego at the time. This was built years ago. I used up a lot of what I had available at the time. But I've got more Lego, which means more availability, like hinges. So, for example, Generation 1 might not have this. Although this is Generation 1, this is only one of this version I had. I used up a lot of these are scarce. I didn't have a lot of this type of hinge back then. But when I get more Legos, I might say, right, I'm going to improve that model. Now I could put hinges on them. And then I would then have the same model and have a Generation 2 that would have hinges on it. See? That's what I mean with although it's still based on the same model, it's got more improvements because I've got more Lego to play with. I've got more Lego to more variety. And to get the variety that I want, now that there's more Lego stores opening, I can then go to the pick a brick and pick exactly what I need, what I want. I try and keep it standard. But this is one big coach. This took me ages. They all took ages. I mean, bear in mind working, I could only do a wee bit at a time, but it took me about a month. And it is heavy, you feel it. It's jam-packed with components under there. It's got, oh gosh. Oh, it's got the coach lighting, the Wi-Fi, the high back seats, got drink refreshments. Courier, that's your extra staff member, you got your driver, and then you got your courier, which would sit alongside the driver to help service, serve the passengers. If passenger hits a service bell, they could maybe come up and ask them what they want, for drink or directions or whatever service. Luggage in there, gosh, there's so much. But yeah, it's jam-packed full of stuff anyway. And the weight, the coinage I used, some of the luggage representative space, and jam-packed it with coins out of sight. And it doesn't rattle about either because I've taped them up. And that gets the weight right. Now the actual weights aren't necessarily exact. So the unladed weight of this is exact. That is synchronized. But the weight proportion may not necessarily be synchronized. Like, there'll be more weight over the rear because engine and transmission's at the rear. But in this instance, it might not be the same proportion as it is on the real life model. I can't quite get it to that yet. At all, when I mean that's the generation 1. Now, if I later on down the line decide to do generation 2, I might be able to do a wee bit more on that. But I've only got so much time. And I can only really build Lego models when I've got free time. I'll pause this a minute. Yeah, I was just turning over the Gemini, the Travel Dundee or National Express Dundee Gemini. And I've got the engine representations here. You might not see it too clearly on there, but there's a pulley there. Although the pulleys are the radiator is on the off side in real life. So I've used that as a representation. The transmission sits that way. It's a transverse rear mount engine. So the engine sits that way, transmission sits, and that's connected to it. There's an angular drive under there that goes to the rear axle, which I've got a representation of that as well on this. There's lots of components. Again, it's got the wheelbase, the ballast tank, if you like, or the belly, the ballast tank, where there's coins in there to get the weight synchronized to the relation to the other Lego models, as I explained earlier. No, this is quite a fragile. Yeah, that's no. This is the big coach, 65 seater. Oops, that's a single deck, full size. That was actually based off a 10.5 ton metric ton. So you get 117 times it by 10.5. That'll give you the actual weight of that in grams, which is the equivalent weight in kilograms. The door opens on this one. Some of them, most of them do. Some of them just unclip, like you saw in the models upstairs. These mirrors actually fall back. This is representing the windows, the wipers rather. Maybe you get a bit of the seatage in there as well. That's upper deck with the Gemini, the lights, etc. The light parting is not necessarily the same as in real life, but I've tried to get the seat parting as much as I could. So I've got a whole load of single deckers. I've got a flat rigid truck. If it's got full-size wheels on it, the gross weight for these things are 18 ton, like that of a double axle bus, like that one. 18 ton gross, 10.5 ton empty, 18 ton gross. If it's got more axles like the flatbed Arctic there, and that's again, it's 44 ton. It's got 6 axles, 44 ton gross. The unladed weight of this is about 14 tons gross, 14 ton empty. So to get the actual weight of that in grams in relation to the other Lego models, you guessed it, you get 117 times it by 14, and that will weigh what that weighs in grams. Remember, 117 is the common denominator. 117 is the equivalent to 1 metric ton. So this car here was a big one. I think I skilled it as a 1.5 ton. So the actual weight, if I go upstairs and put that on the kitchen scales, that will weigh 117 times 1.5. That's what that will show up, because that's based off of 1.5 metric ton weight of a car. 1.5 ton. It's based off a Granada, actually, like a big Mark, maybe the Mark II Granada. Anyway, it when I say based off the model, it doesn't have any Ford badges or anything on it. It's just what I had in my mind. I used the dimensions of it to build this. It was a big luxury car, or big enemy. MIDI bus, coach, Volvo B7 City bus coach with the low profile wheels. So under there, it's got all the transmission, engine in the centre, and to get the ballast I used a wee bit of space between the wheels to get the coins in there. This is the sister. There's a 3 production of this type of single decker. The prototype I think's up the stair, but there's 3 of them identical in every way, weight and everything. And let's just show you through there. So the covers come off to reveal all the components. I put them on there, and there's components under there that represent the components of the running gear of the real bus. This is the coach, just a double axle coach, gross 18 tonne, empty weight of 12 tonnes. No, it was actually 13 tonnes. So if I remember right, I've got them all written down anyway. So you just get 117 times it by 13, and that'll give you that actual weight in grams. Or to get the weight, if you want to know what that represents, you could just reverse the process. Put them on the kitchen scales, whatever it says in grams, divide it by 117. That will give you the equivalent of what it would be in metric tons. Times it by 1,000, that'll give you the actual weight. Just like I showed earlier, like I explained earlier on. Don't know why. I just sort of, it's quite complicated, so I thought I would just try and explain it as best as I could. So I kind of keep really explaining it just to try and, because it is quite complex until you get, it's not easy to explain. So when I see an example to highlight it, I'll do so. This is just some of the wrecks from previous racing. That used to be a tipper. That was the first generation Arctic tipper. What you saw up the stair was the second generation of the Arctic tipper, and it's just in a ruined state because it's been battered around. And one of my reenactment of the destruction derbies that I go to in real life, that I reenact with my Lego ones rather than take it apart the boring way. I just smash them to bits and see what one fares, what one's stronger. And then use that knowledge to improve the strength of the other ones that I build. So I've got tons of Lego. I've got Lego in there, 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 I've got records in here that tell us the weights. I'll show you in a second. In fact, I was just going to watch this file. Hang on a second. That's just a rough idea. The spelling's atrocious, by the way. It's just so that I can remember. I wasn't going to ever show this online. So I wasn't really I didn't even bother spelling it right, as long as I knew what it meant. So ignore the bad spelling. Like I say, at the time I was never planning on putting any of this online. But I'm showing you anyway, because there's nothing, I'll not do any harm to show you it. So just ignore the spelling. And all this doesn't, that's just for my references. But I'll give you an example. There's the first generation LC double deck. Here's the grammage, 1143 grams, 9762 kilograms is what the actual meat is. Built it September 2012 to the current date, when went into being a Pro Stock reenactment, which was a Pro Stock banger version, in June 2016. And it was used for a while because I fixed it up. I enjoy getting the wrecks and sort of kind of like repairing it up a wee bit, like what they do in real life for the bangers. For the next heats and for the other meetings, I'll kind of just throw them, fix them up, patch them up. Well, I've done something similar to that as well. But I quite enjoy doing that because I'm actually repairing damage. So that's like the examples here is Arctic tipper trailer, 793 grams, equal to 6777 kilograms in real life. Because what I'm doing there is getting 793, dividing it by 117, right? And the number of times 117 will go in there will be the number of metric tons. So it goes in there 6.777 times. So I just times it by 1,000, that'll give you the equivalent to the metric tons. Here's one. This two-door car here is a bang on 117 grams, which is a metric ton. That was September, August 2013. It lasted up till February 2015, and it went into Pro Stock. So the car's not here, but I've got other ones that weigh not far off it. But that was bang on. It's a two-door production car. And I've got a list, but I'm not going to. This is just sort of just things that I listed. like, all this means nothing. That's just I just call it these things. I just budget. It's not on sale or anything. I'll not really mean a lot to you, but just so that I could look at the model and if I could remember exactly when I bought it, when it was destroyed, what the weight was, what it represented, the description of the vehicle. If I dropped it by accident, if I needed to repair it, I'd log that in as well. Stuff like that. You know, I've had to modify it as well. Sometimes I look at the models and think, oh, I could maybe make a difference there. So I'll do a slight modification to it, just alter it very slightly. I did that on a few of them, and I logged it down, so I know what I'd done to it when it was done as well. As I say, I started all this. This alcove was converted into, as you can see, it's got, these are actually just pasting tables upsided, and I store Lego in there as well because they come off. And although it's empty at the moment, it's got some Lego in it. To show you, it doesn't matter, but there's Lego in there anyway. So they double up as a shelf and doubles up as a store. Some of them are as a pasting table that was used. This wasn't. This is just a thick bit of wood. It goes on like that. My dad's really good with he was an electrician. He's good with DIY, so he done a lot of this. I'd thought what I wanted and gave him the ideas what I wanted. Obviously, I had to pay for all the bits. He was a good electrician. He done a really good job. That was his trade, so he was able to wire up all the lights and everything, you know, do all the electrical stuff. It's just a standard. This is just a flat and the staircase, that's all it is. It's not a big house at all, it's just a flat. Use the alcove, utilise every inch of it, and I mean every inch. Nice reclining seat, and bar stool for the seat. So I've been spending hours in here sometimes. A cooling fan, a lot of music, a tape, got the lights. You could just see what I'm doing because shadow's a problem. So that's the main lobby light out, and that's the alcove light up. And then at night when I'm finished, I could just draw the curtain back. So we just simply put that in there. I would stop what I was doing, and then we could just, that would be it for the night. And then I'll come back whenever I get a chance, crack on with it again. We've got a ton of storage in there. So there's like one here as well. 3 drawers of it. And then there's all separated. I've separated all the Lego up. Some of it's miscellaneous, but most of it's been separated for ease of finding what I need. So if I need this part here, I could look out the tub it's got that in it. I had to spend ages separating them up. But if I've been in a destruction derby, then a lot of them have been in a miscellaneous. And I just use that to pass these back up to put them back in for more heat if we want to destroy them again. Or destroy them even further till they're totally wrecked completely. And then all the bits then that are salvaged off of that goes into here, and then from there I just get them, separate them all out, put them in the respective tubs, and then rebuild something else out of them. So I think that I've covered quite a bit at the moment. Actually, I'm gonna bear with me 1 second. Yeah, I just had to stick my tea in the oven there. I can't believe how long it's taken. I mean, I thought I could maybe do this 20-25 minutes. Not a chance. No way. But I had to put my tea on, otherwise I'm going to be late. You might ask why I bother with the weight synchronization. Well, it's for more of authenticness, especially in the destruction derbies. Because when one of these buses plough into the vans, it'll be like when it's the weight forces will be scaled down. It'll be a similar equivalent, if you like. So if a big bus ploughs into one of these vans in real life, it's just going to go right over the top of it. Something similar to that with the models, because the models are equivalent proportional weights. I didn't really script how to do this video, by the way. I just literally wung it. I just came in and said, right, I'll get this done. I've no script anything, so I just waffled on just to try and get the message out. I don't have a lot of time, so I said this is the only time chance I've got for a while, so I'm just doing it now. So I tried to explain something. I could have maybe explained it easier if I had it scripted, but I just didn't have time to do it. But yeah, it's basically just to proportionate the weight. That's why I do it, and it's more authentic. I lift them up, I could get the feel of the weight. Like this, that weighs, I know what that feels like weight. So when I pick up one of the big buses, single decker, this is a production one, I know how it feels in the weight in relation to the car. I can feel the difference. So it gives us a bit more of a the sensation of the weight difference between the models, not only in the size because it's scaled. I'll get the measuring tape, I can maybe show you that. Yeah, I'm just getting the measuring tape here very quickly. I'll be better if I turn the camera and show you. I just quickly got the measuring tape here. So you can see there, like, that bus, just under 40 centimetres. So I based that model on a single deck that's just under 40 foot long. The car, again, you just measure it. Self-explanatory. It's about 16 foot. No, sorry, it's just, yeah, just under. It's the way the camera's showing it. Like, we've got that there, I've got to get the camera right, otherwise the camera's got to show it right. So there you go, 16. If I move the camera that way, it would kind of show a wee bit unaccurate. It looks like it's showing 17 foot, but it isn't. It's just because of the way I'm in the camera. It's 16 foot. So that's 16 centimetres on the actual car, but it's 16 foot equivalent is the scale. It's 16 centimetres. 1 centimetre equals 1 foot. So that you can see that the car, you could, like this one here is a bit shorter. That's coming in at just about 15.5 centimetres, which is based off of the 15.5 foot. It's not coming out too clear on the camera because in the way I'm holding it and holding the tape and holding the camera at the same time, but it's quite self-explanatory. Just measure it. 1 centimetre equals a foot. Right, okay. Hang on a sec. Right. So that'll do for now. I thought, as I say, I could make this video in 20 odd minutes. Not a chance. God, I didn't even look at the clock. But anyway, there you have it. Okay, so that's my Lego model collection. You probably wonder what that. Actually, this, if I remember right, this camera, it'll be inverted because this is a new phone I've got. So these will have to be, the videos will have to, when I'm showing myself, like this selfie, it'll be inverted. So the everything's going to be back front. So if I was sitting in a car, a real car, it would look like I was sitting in a left-hand drive car because the video is inverted. But the other phone didn't do that. When I put it on the selfie mode, it had it the right way, but I'm going to have to use, if I forget to do it, then it'll show inverted. If I remember when I compiling this video to invert it, then you'll be able to read the stuff, and it's like when you see me on it. That's just the way it is, the way this camera is. I've only bought it, I'm not time to really do anything studying yet. I just hit the button and press record and that's it. So, right, okay. Hope you've enjoyed that. Catch you later, okay? Post other stuff up later on various subjects. Right, cheers. Bye now.